city. Bad blood and passionate fan bases are the lifeblood of NFL rivalries. While rivalries are often settled on the gridiron, an incident would occur between two rivals that would cause the NFL to take drastic action and ban all further meetings between the two teams.
Game between the San Francisco 49ers and the Oakland Raiders turning violent this weekend. Take a look at this video taken inside Candlestick Park, where fans from both teams pummeled each other with punch after punch. But it didn't end there. Police are also investigating not one, but two shootings that happened outside the stadium after the game was over.
A third victim was also hospitalized after being knocked unconscious in a stadium bathroom.
Whenever the 49ers and the Raiders get together, you can throw the book away, because theirs is always a game decided as much by emotion as anything else.
A mere 22 miles stood between these two iconic franchises. No one could have thought that those 22 miles could make them so different.
The thing they'll do is take a swing at you. If you hit them good, they'll take a swing. There's 4 or 5 guys that are demented on that team.
A rivalry amplified by their proximity and their polar reputations. The Raiders have often been referred to as the criminal element of pro football. A franchise defined in the 1970s due to their hyper-aggressive play style, they quickly developed a reputation as the dirtiest team in the NFL. Whether it was kicking, punching, or clotheslining, the Raiders did it to maximum effect. And with owner Al Davis and head coach John Madden at the helm, the Oakland Raiders experienced repeated success, winning a total of 6 division titles during the 1970s and winning Super Bowl XI against the Minnesota Vikings and Super Bowl XV against the Philadelphia Eagles in 1980, and again reaching the Super Bowl in 2002 and losing to the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. However, the Raiders' notorious reputation reached beyond the men in the arena. The NFL's most notorious fan base. Feared just as much as the ruthless Raiders that ruled the field, the Raiders' black hole, as it came to be known, struck fear into rival teams and fans alike. Adding to an already mean and nasty reputation the Raiders developed through the course of their franchise history. The 49ers, led by quarterback Joe Montana and receiver Jerry Rice, found constant success throughout the 1980s and 90s, winning 4 Super Bowls with Montana at the helm, and 1 in '94 with Steve Young at quarterback.
Broadcasting game. Here's Rice making the catch.
While the Raiders defined their franchise through their hard-hitting, dirty style of play, the 49ers defined theirs with finesse, discipline, and precision. The 49er faithful, as the fan base became known, was always viewed by the Raider fan base as spoiled and demeaning to Raider fans, and would exacerbate the rivalry between the two Bay Area teams.
Marcus Allen, number 77, Bubba Paris, against Townsend here. Bubba said he wants to dominate. He's trying to win 2 out of 3 falls there.
It's a wide open field. Kind of lets up a little bit at the end there and takes a good shot.
Okay, that's called your hard count. Well,
don't get thrown.
Oh, yes, the ball is gone in. That is not even close.
Prior to the merger in 1966, which would combine the AFL and NFL, the Oakland Raiders and the San Francisco 49ers had never faced each other, but that would all change in 1967. The first matchup with the Oakland Raiders and the 49ers, or the Battle of the Bay as it would come to be known, would draw 53,254 fans. The regular season had not even started, and the stands were packed with rabid Raider and 49ers fans alike. This would be an all-out war. A few months prior, on June 16th, both teams had a meeting to decide where the first game would take place. The Raiders, represented by center Jim Otto, and the 49ers, represented by defensive end Clark Miller, flipped a coin. Animosity was apparent between the two teams. Jim Otto states, "If we had played the game that day, I would have kicked Miller's butt. I was ready to go to war. I didn't like the 49ers. They tried to make us feel inferior." GM for the Raiders, Scotty Sterling, would state, "There's never been a Bay Area game that had more importance. That was an emotional time. I hated the 49ers. It went back to the old San Francisco rivalry thing. Feelings were high." The Raiders won the flip, and the infamous Battle of the Bay rivalry would kick off in the Oakland Coliseum. In what would be a closely contested match, the 49ers managed to seal a victory after two crucial fumbles by the Oakland Raiders in the final minutes of the game. The start of the 49ers and Raiders preseason rivalry would end in tragedy 44 years later.
Once the game ended, the violence escalated where two separate shootings left two men in their 20s recovering in the hospital.
The first official Battle of the Bay game would take place in Week 14 of the 1970 season, a game San Francisco needed to win to make the playoffs. The John Brody-led 49ers faced off against the George Blanda-led Raiders, and despite the Raiders' physical, no prisoners approach, the 49ers won handedly, 38-7. The 1970s for the Raiders was one of consistent improvement, but for the 49ers was one of deterioration. In 1974, the now Ken Stabler-led Oakland Raiders traveled to Candlestick Park and won the game 35-25, with a stout, hard-hitting Raiders defense creating 5 turnovers. During the 76 season, Oakland would go on to win their first Super Bowl, while the 49ers struggled to gain a winning record.
Back in Oakland, sellout crowd at the Oakland Alameda Coliseum, and it's quite a rivalry, even though the Raiders are a contending club and the 49ers are a rebuilding team. There's a lot of feeling about these two teams in the Bay Area.
Bob, you're right. You can tell that by the number of people that turned out to see this game. A lot of 49er fans have come across the Bay. Hendricks on a blitz. He's lucky he didn't break a rib.
In 1979, the Raiders, now led by head coach Tom Flores, and with the likes of Ken Stabler, Jack Tatum, and Gene Upshaw, made easy work of the 49ers, a team that was now in the rebuilding phase. With new head coach Bill Walsh at the helm, former assistant coach to the Raiders. The Raiders outmuscled and outwilled the Bill Walsh-led 49ers in a packed Alameda Raiders stadium, winning 23-10. The 49ers would end the season 2-14. At the end of the 1970s, the Raiders led the rivalry 2-1. However, the next Battle of the Bay would not include the Oakland Raiders. Oakland moved down to Los Angeles after Al Davis was unable to improve the aging and damaged Coliseum. However, the Raiders' move to LA did little to calm the hostility between the two.
Incomplete, intended for Hawkins.
Who's the craziest teammate you ever had?
Charles Haley. That's not hard.
Charles has hit the glass, and he broke the glass.
It's crazy. Charles!
And McKittrick, and he was screaming at McKittrick, called him a bald-headed mother blank.
There we got a little action. You know, if someone's going to be in, it's going to be Howie Long.
Coming off a Super Bowl win, the 49ers, now led by future Hall of Famer Joe Montana, now had the necessary firepower to defeat Oakland. But rookie running back Marcus Allen had different plans in mind. Allen would rush for 116 yards. And despite Montana's valiant effort, The now LA Raiders won 23-17. One of the rivalry's most infamous games took place in 1985. Coming off their 1985 Super Bowl win, the 49ers were now the definitive favorites in the matchup against the wild-card LA Raiders. The Raiders were led by quarterback Jim Plunkett, former quarterback for the 49ers. Plunkett would be under constant duress for the entirety of the game, tasting the turf 9 times. And on the 6th and final sack by the 49ers defensive front, it would mark the end of Plunkett's career in the NFL. The most infamous incident of the game would star NFL legend and future Hall of Famer Howie Long, defensive end for the Raiders. After the game, Howie ran over to the 49ers offensive line coach, Bob McKittrick, hysterically screaming at him for employing dirty cut blocking tactics throughout the game.
75 against Bonhorse, and here comes the push he's talking about, depth in the pocket.
Yelling at him with every expletive imaginable, stating, "You bald-headed." Long chased McKittrick into the tunnel, with 49ers players holding back the charging defensive end. Long could be heard from the stands yelling and screaming about the 49ers' dirty blocking tactics. As Long exited the stadium, they reported that he was noticeably limping. Fellow lineman Greg Townsend had this to say regarding McKittrick's blocking tactics. "They were delaying their blocks, letting us get by them, then as soon as we had our backs to them, they'd come after our legs. That's dirty football." McKittrick's dirty reputation was widespread in the league. In a book titled Dark Side of the Game by former Falcons defensive lineman Tim Green, he referred to McKittrick as Dr. Mean. Now for a quick word from our sponsor. Are you stuck in the past? Does your wallet look like something you picked up off the side of the road? Welcome to the 21st century. The Ridge has revolutionized the way we carry our most valuable items. With its sleek and modern design, the Ridge stands head and shoulders above the dated competition, providing a secure and worthy place to store your cash and cards. The Ridge wallet holds up to 12 plus cards and is made with IRFD blocking technology that protects you from digital pickpocketers. As for your keys, go ahead and throw that dirty lanyard away and get yourself one of these. The Key Case by the Ridge. Sleek and durable, and jingle-free. The Ridge wallet and key case come in a variety of different styles, including carbon fiber, gunmetal, forged ember, and that's just to name a few. Get the best offer with the link ridge.com/beast mode. And right now you can save up to 40% through December 22nd. Again, go to ridge.com/beast mode to save up to 40% off through December 22nd. Now let's get back to the video. Were and stood for. In 1991, the LA Raiders' rivalry with the San Francisco 49ers would reach a fever pitch. 49ers star safety and Hall of Famer Ronnie Lott, alongside All-Pro 49ers running back Roger Craig, would now be in silver and black. In front of 91,000 fans, this was a prime opportunity to show the 49ers how big a mistake they made.
See, the guy that made the hit was Ronnie Lott.
Tension and hostility were apparent throughout the game, whether it was Raider fans cheering after Jerry Rice was injured,
over the head of Rice, who was turned upside down by McDaniel,
or a scuffle after nearly every play. The notoriety of this 91 matchup between these two rivals would center around one player, Charles Haley. Throughout the course of the game, Haley, a man with an infamously violent and erratic temperament, became increasingly upset as the game went on. Haley was furious that the 49ers had let Lott go the previous season. Seeing his best friend on the other side and losing a game to a team they should have beaten sent Haley over the edge. He went berserk, destroying the locker room, Concerned for his own safety and the safety of the other players, the 49ers told Ronnie Lott to come and help calm down the irate Haley. The series was now 5-2. The Raiders had established their dominance. The 49ers team that had dominated the 80s had trouble doing so against their rivals. In what would be the final matchup with the Raiders in Los Angeles, the 49ers were hell-bent on turning the tide. And there was only one man who could turn the rivalry on its head.
Got a first down. Rice at the very top of the game, in the prime of his career, and
Jerry Rice was just 3 touchdowns away from passing Jim Brown for the career touchdown record. And the Raiders would do everything in their power to avoid being showed up on Monday Night Football. But the Raiders' physical play did little to tame the greatest receiver in NFL history. Jim Brown's record was no more. Led by Rice's electric performance, the 49ers would dominate the Raiders 44-14. The 49ers continued their dominant play into the '95 Super Bowl, defeating the San Diego Chargers. In 2000, the battle between these two iconic franchises would return to the Bay. The Raiders' return to Oakland would be met with the most intense and closely contested Battle of the Bay of all time. The game would boil down to a battle of quarterback and their number 1 receivers. Tim Brown and Terrell Owens were unstoppable and evenly matched. The Raiders applied pressure on Garcia, but to no effect. At the end of regulation, the game was tied 28-28. It was headed into overtime.
Tails, what do you want? Tails? Oakland calls tails. Tails it is. Oakland wins the toss. They want the football.
Overtime in the NFL is one of the most intense moments in all of sports. Emotions are amplified and senses are heightened. The game is on the line. What are you going to do?
Overtime tied at 28. Rich Gannon to throw over the middle. Tim Brown, his first catch since the third quarter, and he's off to the races. 30, out of bounds at the 25.
The Raiders' rookie and controversial first-round pick, Sebastian Janikowski, took the field, looking to seal the win.
The kick is on the way. It is no good.
It was now Garcia and the 49ers' turn to make their final push. And just as the previous 4 quarters had gone, Owens would be the catalyst for a 49ers victory. Or so they thought. The Raiders moved the ball steadily downfield. And as Janikowski warms up on the sideline, preparing for one of the most important kicks of his young career, Gannon and Tim Brown decided to win the game on their own. In 2002, we would see both teams at their finest. And while the packed Oakland Coliseum, now known as the Black Hole, was packed full of Raider and Niner fans alike, this would be the most competitive Battle of the Bay in history. Many of the fans thought they were seeing double. Jerry Rice was now a Raider, facing his former team for the first time since his departure. The Raiders made a point of trying to involve him early. Much like in the 49ers' previous encounter with the Raiders, Garcia would rely on their number 1 playmaker. Tensions were high. The Battle of the Bay would become a war. At the end of the 4th quarter, with Garcia and Garrison Hearst marching downfield, much like the Battle of the Bay of 2000, the game rested firmly on the kicker, Jose Cortez. The 49ers would emphatically march the ball downfield, with Jeff Garcia putting his body on the line, The 49ers were soon in field goal position. In 2002, the Raiders and 49ers would both make a playoff push, and it would be the closest both teams have ever gotten to meeting in the Super Bowl. The Oakland Raiders would face the 49ers twice, in 2006 and 2010. In 2006, the Raiders decided to add some firepower to their offense by acquiring one of the greatest receivers in history, Randy Moss. But this upgrade would do little to help the Raiders' chances against the 49ers, as they managed to throw 4 interceptions, losing 34-20. In 2010, the Raiders and 49ers were struggling to find their identity. The Raiders, a team that emphasized speed on offense and physicality on defense, failed to be productive on both ends of the ball, while the 49ers, struggling in the pass game, relied on their power running game. Frank Gore would run for 145 yards and would win the game 17-9. I've watched this rivalry in action. It's always been on the brink of exploding into tragedy, but has laid dormant for years. During their annual Battle of the Bay preseason game, a series of incidents would occur that would cause the NFL to ban all further preseason matchups between the two teams. During the third quarter, a man was beaten unconscious in an upper-level stadium bathroom, sustaining life-threatening injuries. Captured on video and posted on YouTube were at least 2 major brawls. No medical attention was required, and therefore was not officially reported. However, the worst was yet to come. After the game, 2 men would be gunned down. 2 separate incidents that would be linked by their fandom. One of the men injured during the incident was wearing an expletive and 49ers shirt, and the other was believed to be a Raiders fan. Both men were deemed to be in critical condition and were immediately rushed to the hospital. This would mark as one of the deadliest incidents in NFL history.
I saw them with horror. I mean, they were just constant wailing at each other without regard to who was there. Not for people to be looking at who they don't like or saying some bad words and then getting into it.
An investigation would ensue. Many questioned the 49ers security measures, but Sergeant Michael Andrychak of the San Francisco Police Department said police and stadium security officials assign extra staff to games between teams with strong rivalries or whose fans have a history of violence. The 49ers-Raiders contest fit both those criteria, and extra police were on hand. This increase in police presence did little to quell the violence that would engulf Candlestick Park.
Bush this past week made the startling but painfully true observation that an American soldier on duty in the Persian Gulf may have been safer there than on the streets of his hometown.
Sources close to the investigation would soon disclose that the Candlestick Park violence may have been gang-related. A rivalry between 2 groups notorious for their crimes in California, which would end in 2 men critically injured, being rushed to the hospital. It should be noted that just 3 years prior, during a 49ers and Raiders matchup, that gunshots were fired. The annual preseason Battle of the Bay would be banned until 2021, where the Raiders were now in Las Vegas. However, due to a scheduling rule that states that each team must face each other at least every 4 years, the Battle of the Bay rivalry was not done.
Oakland, California, Battle for the Bay.
Really unnecessary, but overly cautious. You know, he's got a good relationship with him. Well, here's a rivalry.
Video surfaces of attack at Levi's Stadium yesterday.
In 2014, prior to the game, NFL officials alerted the Alameda Sheriff's Office about the possibility of violent altercations and to heighten security as much as possible. for the first Battle of the Bay since the 2011 shooting. The 49ers would go to the Oakland Coliseum, and in a hard-fought match, the Raiders would emerge victorious, with a rookie quarterback, Derek Carr, leading the charge. Throughout the course of the game, the police were called to investigate 49 incidents, the fifth highest total in any regular season NFL game between 2011 and 2015. In an article on fan violence by the Washington Post, a moment after Oakland quarterback Derek Carr passed for a touchdown, a woman in the upper deck stood to cheer. A man sitting behind her, a police report described, shoved her so hard she flipped over the next row. When the woman's boyfriend turned, the man behind him shrugged. "Sorry, bro," he said. After the game concluded and the Oakland Raiders came out victorious, the violence would only escalate after a man was beaten in the parking lot, gravely disabled from his injuries. 2 49er fans were also arrested after a video posted to social media showed the two men beating multiple people in the restroom. Just a couple of miles away, in a dispute between fans, a security guard was shot after trying to break up the altercation. At the end of the day, 25 fans would end up in jail. 2018 would be the final Battle of the Bay, and the fans wanted to let the rivalry go out on a high note, as numerous brawls broke out around the stadium. Caught on a cell phone video, a man can be seen with a after an intense altercation with a rival fan.
They arrested him and charged him with felony battery. That was just one of the 3 arrests for assault they made on game night.
31 fans were arrested, and 93 fans were kicked out of the stadium.
The arrest total for last night's game did exceed the arrest total for any event in the last year and a half. We approached the game with significant staffing increases in both uniformed and non-uniformed officers. Given the rivalry of these teams involved, we had been preparing for this event ever since the NFL schedule was published back in April.
The 49ers would rout the Oakland Raiders 34-3. In Week 16 of the 2019 season, mayhem engulfed the Oakland Coliseum. The Raiders were moving to Las Vegas after Al Davis's son, Mark Davis, plagued with similar problems that his father endured, was unable to replace or renovate the aging Oakland Coliseum, leading to their departure. In the Raiders' final home game, they would blow a 16-3 lead against the Jacksonville Jaguars and would lose the game 20-16. Boos echoed throughout the rundown Coliseum as fans threw food and drink onto the turf, while many also rushed the field. The Oakland era of the Raiders